This video we're going to be reviewing The Walking Dead Season 5, Episode 12, Remember. So now we know that it wasn't necessarily a trap right away, there actually were laughing children playing. So Rick and co are in there, and just as always, Glenn ends up going in first, and this guy is amazing. If you notice, he's the first to go in Terminus, he's the first to go out and rescue, he's the first that was inside Alexandria. This guy is always first, so when people don't rank Glenn as high on the survival chart, it's like, this guy's amazing. He's a runner, he's daring, he's the first to go into places, so I really admire Glenn, and I think Maggie admires him a little bit more at the end of the episode. So they end up going in, and they have to talk to Deanna, and in the comics it's Douglas, so they just swapped the gender and then changed her name a little bit, and they have to do interviews for a camera and basically just talk about themselves and where they're at. I know some people have made jokes that she's a congresswoman, so she shouldn't be leading and she has no idea what she's doing, but I kind of think that that's a little true, that we have seen that she doesn't know what she's doing, but she does know that, and that's why she wants Rick and company in there, because they've been out there, they've been surviving. And that's exactly what Alexandria needs. It needs those people thinking things that they would never have thought of, because they've been so safe in there with so little threats that they don't know how to protect themselves as well as they do. So as much as the Rick and all of them need Alexandria, Alexandria really needs them. I like the interviews. I especially liked Carol. And if you couldn't tell, she was kind of like playing it up, oh, this big heavy gun, I can't get it off, and like that shy little smile and playing all innocent. And then she was doing her interview and she was talking about how, she misses her husband Ed, and he was the most wonderful man, and she's just the den mother to everyone. And I know that Deanna said she has a good way of reading people and she wanted to become a professional poker player, but I don't know if she's seen through what Carol's doing of making herself seem weak and defenseless so that they drop their guard more around her, and she's able to get more intel and get closer to people and assess to see if it really is a threat. So Carol's actually playing it really smart, even though Daryl's just like, oh, you look ridiculous, and she kind of does. From the Carol we now know her as, seeing her in this little sweater and jeans or whatever and going about doing her business with the elderly, just kind of doesn't seem like her anymore. And it's not, and this is just all a way of Carol getting more information. I like the comparison between Daryl and Carol. Daryl is playing tough and like, he's not gonna change, and this is the way he is, and he's bringing his possum and all that. But deep inside, he has tons of heart and tons of humanity, but he's pretending like he doesn't. And then we have Carol on the other side, who's pretending to just be this civilized woman that's just so happy to be back, and she's just a big old den mother. But she quite possibly has less humanity left than Daryl does. So they're both pretending to be something they're not, which is so cool. And I think another point is that Daryl realizes when Deanna said, look at this, you're all these people from all these different backgrounds, but you came together and you're now a family. You would have never seen that in the real world. And Daryl begins to realize that in the real world, these people would have never been his friends. I mean, he even says to Rick, oh, you're a cop now again? Daryl, said his brother and him were deadbeats, and the people that he's with now would have never been his friends. And maybe he's starting to feel a little bit that if he's not out there helping them to survive, kill, hunt, do all that stuff, and now that they're inside Alexandria, if they don't need that and they have to go back to the civilized society, why do they need him anymore? And that might be something that's playing a little bit in his head, and what the writers and the directors are trying to get across of adjustment. And adjustments all across the board are going to be really hard. Look at Carl. He's from a little child, was in this environment where he watches people he loved die constantly. He's killing zombies. He's moving around. There's no consistency in his life. And now he's in one place, and when the kids are like, hey, do you want to go play pool or play video games? And he's so awkward because he doesn't know, and he is afraid of becoming weak and that these people are weak. And it's a little more heart-wrenching when he's younger in the comics, because I understand that the actor that plays Carl in this grew up fast, because that's what child actors do. But it's just heart-wrenching to see that someone that should be able to be a child and play and do video games and all that is just like, no, I don't know how, and they're weak. They're gonna make me weak. I don't want them to. I'm going to die if I'm like them. And then the next part, there is the runner group, and they're going out. And this was really just to show how innocent Alexandria was and their people, and just that how naive they are. The fact that somebody ended up a zombie killed one of their buddies and they were stringing it up as punishment. Like, you could punish a zombie. It's mindless. It doesn't know what it's doing. It doesn't care. You're not punishing it. And they indulged them for a little bit, and oh my gosh, when Aiden's like, oh, we got some sweet biscuits today, and he pulled out these guns, and Glenn and Tara, you could just see them like look at each other like, oh my god. And then talking about ROTC and how, you know, he's big stuff and all that. And I really wish Abraham would have been there to kind of just put him in his place and be like, oh, yeah, you think you're big? But then they go out, and just seeing the amount of inexperience with them and almost getting someone bit and then freaking out. And then when they come back and Aiden takes a swing at Glenn, and Glenn didn't even have to think about it. He just ducked, punched one over, and just the amount of how they work as a group. And I don't even know how Aiden, I mean, just like Glenn was like, walk away, you're not impressing anyone. I don't see how Aiden could have thought that he was going to have one up on people that were surviving out in the open for multiple years. And the little smile on Maggie's face after Glenn ducks the punch and he ends up on his ass, I think was magnificent. Also kind of interesting that Deanna was just like, oh, I'm glad you did it, and, you know, this is perfectly acceptable, and we all need to work together. So she really knows that there is time for change. I know some people are really suspicious of her, and I mean, she could turn out to be an antagonist and crazy, and Rick has to take her down. We just don't know. Just like when Rick walked by the guy on the porch smoking, and then he was just like, oh yeah, that's my wife. Smoke cigarette. Welcome to Alexandria. You kind of know that he's going to be antagonistic just from how they wrote him. So interesting to see the showdown with that, and if Jesse and Rick get a little bit closer. And then finally, the ending with Rick going, we'll just take this place. If you looked at the shadows at the end of it, Rick is standing there and half his face is light and half his face is dark. And then Carol, who is pretending to be this wholesome woman, is in the light in her little sweater. And then Daryl, who is pretending to be this dark, is all in dark. So you really got to see Rick playing the good and the evil, and I think that shot was just masterful. So, overall, not a lot of exciting things happening in this episode. Who do you think took the gun out of the blender? I'm thinking it's Eden, who, I'm going to say her name wrong, Eden, who ended up who was in the house above looking down at Rick and Carl when they were taking the blender out, so it's likely that she had climbed over the fence. She was in the house doing things, and then she saw Rick bury the gun, she took it out, and then she was in there again looking down watching them. So I'm pretty sure it was her, but we don't know quite yet. So you can write your thoughts below. Make sure you like and subscribe.